In this video, we're going to talk about delegating URL requests. So in the previous video, we talked about handling URL patterns. And that is, you get a request that comes in, let's just say udel.edu. That's going to match this pattern. It's going to map it to go home, and then it executes and returns the response. The registrar's office, university level function. So you get udel.edu/registrar/ it calls this method, returns the appropriate response. But here's the problem. You can imagine how many URLs there are at the University of Delaware. And there's a lot, right? This file would get to be incredibly complicated, all right? And one of the problems is going to be when you're dealing with an enterprise level web application, is going to be managing this level of complexity. Ideally, what we want to be able to do is delegate. That is to say, if a request comes in and it's for the university level, like the registrar, okay, we'll handle it here. But if it's, let's say, goes down to one of the colleges, let's say Learner, maybe the Learner college should handle it. And we're going to delegate that and pass it off to Learner, and that might be handled by an added application, let's say called Learner. So the Learner college has its own added application that it maintains. The Arts and Science College has its own app that it maintains. But the default app that we created, maybe that's what handles the university level requests. So if we go back to what we did before, you'll notice the urls.py that we were editing is in the default app. It is in the UD folder. And so what I'm going to want to do is I want to create, to be able to hand this off to a different part of our application, our web application, I want to create an added app called Learner. And that's going to handle actually the requests that come in for Learner College. So first I want to do is kill my web server. And I am going to right click on the root folder and say open integrated terminal. And there we are. And I want to create a new application, an added application called Learner. And I am in the correct folder. Yes, I'm in the root folder. So manage.py, and we'll call it Learner. And of course, if I actually put start app, that would help. Start app space Learner. Now that will create a Learner added application, and it's going to have its own models. And we're not quite there at models yet. We'll get there very soon. But you'll notice that it also does not have a urls.py file, and we'll fix that in just a second. But what we want to do, this is at the URLs file now at the default app. This is the university level. The university level urls.py file is still going to intercept every request. But what it wants to be able to do now is say when a request comes in that matches a certain pattern, I'm going to offload it to the Learner app. So we're going to use a different approach here. And what I'm going to say is say path again. And now we're going to designate a particular path, and that is Learner. Okay. And we're going to say that if this comes in, we're going to use, and by the way, one of the cool things about this added documentation is it gives you an example of this right here. Okay. So we're going to copy this. I could actually copy this whole thing. Copy. This is the default documentation that's generated, and because Django loves you to do this, that is delegate control to other applications. So we'll say this. We'll add our little comma at the end, and what this does is it says if a request comes in of the pattern udel.edu/learner/ delegate it to the URLs file that is in the Learner app. Now at this point we don't have actually a URLs file that's in Learner app. We'll add that in just a second. But if I save this, you'll see that this is going to delegate it down to Learner. So if I go to Learner, what I need to do is, and hopefully you're getting familiar with this dot notation now. Okay, this is folder, this is file. Folder, Learner, this is going to be urls.py. Now we don't have a urls.py, so we need to add it. Right click and say new file, urls.py. And now what we're going to do is we're going to handle that request. So I'm going to go over to the URLs file, copy a lot of stuff because it's largely the same format. Copy. This is the university level folder. And I'm going to paste. And we don't need the admin. And we don't need the path, but we do need the views. So we'll do this. And what we're going to say is, again, to make sure you understand the pattern that this file is covering. Now this file is in Learner now. So the pattern that this file is going to handle is udel.edu/learner and then anything that comes after that. So the paths that we have to deal with, the patterns that we have to deal with, are anything after udel.edu/learner/. Anything that comes after that, this file is going to handle it. If we're going to go to the learner homepage, therefore, this is going to be the pattern because there is nothing after udel.edu/learner. We can say go home, but let's call this learner home. Each path should have its own name. And let's create a pattern now for my department. Accounting and MIS, we'll call this the pattern AM/. We'll say go, we'll call it AM, and we'll call it Accounting MIS. Okay. So there are two patterns to make sure that you understand how this works. Down here, I'm going to type these in. What patterns does this handle? Well, remember, if we go back now to the urls.py file, this is in the main application, the default app, and it's saying that anything that matches the pattern of learner/ hand it off to learner.urls. Okay, and you'll notice I get an error here. I have to add this. I'm glad I remembered that because that would be a nasty error. I have to add that because it's an import. I have to import that. Files, save all. Good. Now it's covered. So this is going to hand off to everything that is of the format www.udel.edu/learner/. And it's going to hand it off to the learner website. By the way, again, the server here doesn't matter. Django ignores the name of the server. I'm just using udel.edu as an example. So if it's of that format, hand it off to learner. Let's go over to the learner URLs. The learner URLs file, this is going to handle the pattern. Why? Because there was nothing after the pattern that the one up top handled. Which one does this handle? Well, this handles this pattern. That's what that pattern handles. Hopefully you see how this is almost like leveled, how the addresses start to make sense, because it's like at the global level, there's Delaware, udel.edu, then we go to the college, now we go down to the department. So you can see how there's almost kind of a sense that these addresses make sense. I'm going to take these out because these will generate an error. You'll notice that we need a views.py file. Okay, we don't have those views, so we need to add that file. We're going to say save all. Okay, and again, we need this now in the learner folder. This is going to be the learner views. The learner college is responsible for this, so we're going to create views.py. Oh, I already have a views.py apparently. Oh, right there. Sorry. And then that's right. It does create that by default. Now we need to create two files here, okay? Two methods, go home and go AM. So the first one is def go home request. And what are we going to return? Well, we're going to return an HTTP response, and it's going to be welcome to Learner College. Okay, and then the other one we need was very similar, and that was for accounting and MIS, copy, and that was called Go AM, and that was going to be welcome to. All right. Now, if this works, those patterns should all be in place. I need to do an import, so let me fix that. I'm not using render, so I can take that out. Okay, there's the import. That should fix that error. All right, now I have a bunch of patterns in place. If I run my web server, okay, I'm not getting any errors. That's a good sign. I go over now to, and I type in 127, which is our web server. There's our home page. That's our udel home page in effect. If I go to registrar, there's the registrar. That's good. Now let's go down to Learner College. Type in learner. There's the Learner College. And now I can get down to the department by typing AM. And there's accounting and MIS. So in effect, we've created a website now that is decentralized. You can hand off to individual colleges or even departments, and they can handle their individual requests. What will happen is that will keep the urls.py file for the main much cleaner, and it will just hand off the URLs to the main functional areas here at the university. Businesses, of course, can do this as well. We will see this actually with our company application in class examples. So I hope this helps. Take care. Bye-bye.